The clash between Khamzat Chimaev and Robert Whittaker showdown has finally come to an end, and the MMA community already predicted the outcome. Meanwhile, Dan Hardy stated that the winner of Whittaker versus Chimaev deserved the next middleweight title shot, noting that a Chimaev victory would have brought significant excitement and attention to the division.
And I don't know whether Chimaev would have the gas to be able to drive through 10 minutes and get that on the scorecards. I think that second round might be challenging for him. I mean, you look at what Gilbert Burns was able to do when he was able to push Chimaev into that second round. You start to see some vulnerability there. And I think someone like Whittaker being slightly bigger, more of a clean striker potentially than Gilbert Burns, he could definitely make the second half of his fight, more, certainly more in his ballpark.
Dan Hardy discussed Khamzat Chimaev's potential challenges due to his health, particularly how it might have affected his stamina during the fight. Hardy expressed concern that Chimaev's compromised immune system might have weakened his endurance, although he acknowledged that even a brief display of strength could have been highly dangerous for Robert Whittaker in the early stages of the fight. As Hardy stated, "My main concern was that Che was going to come back and look healthy. Even if he was strong for 5 minutes, 7 minutes, he was going to be a horrendous time for Rob. He really was going to have to be on his guard." Hardy believed that Whittaker's endurance against early aggression could have shifted the fight in his favor in the later rounds. Moreover, Michael Bisping questioned if Chimaev could manage his temper, emotions, diet, and pace to endure 5 rounds. He noted that Chimaev tended to dominate early, but slowed down in later rounds, which could pose challenges in future fights.
Can Khamzat Chimaev become the champion? It's for several reasons. Of course, he's got a tough fight against Robert Whittaker this weekend. We know, okay? Robert Whittaker's not an easy man to get by. And if he does that, you got to think there will be a championship fight some point in the near future. But the real question boils down to self-discipline. Can Khamzat control his pace, his temper, his anger, his emotions? Can he watch his diet? And can he go 5 rounds hard? Because when he went up against Kamaru Usman, yeah, he destroyed Kamaru Usman in the first round. But again, just like against Gilbert Burns, slowed down in the second and the third. So what does that mean? Well, it means that Khamzat Chimaev is probably the best one-round fighter that we have in the UFC.
Bisping analyzed the key factors that could impact Chimaev's fight against Robert Whittaker. He focused on Whittaker's toughness and experience, highlighting that Whittaker has the ability to go 5 rounds, which could challenge Chimaev's endurance. Bisping emphasized that while Chimaev will likely take Whittaker down, Whittaker's durability could test whether Chimaev can maintain his energy across multiple rounds. He stressed the importance of Chimaev pacing himself, noting that Chimaev tends to slow down after the first round. Referencing his fights against Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman, Bisping discussed fighter fatigue, explaining that while all fighters get tired, what matters most is their mental toughness. Bisping added, "The reason I say Khamzat Chimaev can become the champion is for several reasons. Of course, he's got a tough fight against Robert Whittaker this weekend. We know, okay, Robert Whittaker is not an easy man to get by. And if he does that, you gotta think there will be a championship fight at some point in the near future. But the real question boils down to self-discipline." Joe Rogan reflected on Robert Whittaker's past fight against Paulo Costa, where Whittaker had secured a win. He emphasized that Whittaker's dominant performance in that bout had proven him to be a formidable contender, which made the upcoming fight with Khamzat Chimaev a highly anticipated and legitimate challenge.
At least we got a chance to see what Khamzat looks like against a world-class, world championship caliber fighter. So this was a big one. This is Robert Whittaker with plenty of time to prepare. A guy who is just as legit as they get. Just beat Paulo Costa. That's a good fight. I like that.
Rogan had emphasized that Whittaker, being a former middleweight champion and a solid, powerful 185-pound fighter, was a serious challenge for Khamzat. Rogan had said, "Whittaker is a big dude. He's a solid, beefy 185, a former champion," indicating that this fight would be a real test for Khamzat compared to his previous bout against Kamaru Usman, who had taken the fight on short notice. Rogan had stressed that unlike Usman, Whittaker would have full preparation time, making the fight even more significant and a true gauge of Khamzat's abilities at middleweight. Brendan Schaub noted that Robert Whittaker, despite being the underdog, is a strong contender. He suggested betting on Whittaker, as this fight marked a significant increase in competition for Khamzat Chimaev.
Robert Whittaker's the worst matchup for Khamzat, especially 5 rounds. And I would assume that Robert Whittaker is an underdog. I'm taking Whittaker, especially in 5 rounds, because if we just go based off the last few fights of Khamzat, yeah, he's a minus 160. Robert Whittaker plus 140. That line's going to change. I definitely would bet on Robert Whittaker.
Schaub emphasized Robert Whittaker's strengths, noting that he had proven himself as a true middleweight and one of the best in the division, with only losses to top competitors like Israel Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis. Schaub pointed out that Whittaker's performance against Paulo Costa, a large middleweight, had demonstrated his readiness for tough challenges. In contrast, Schaub expressed uncertainty about Khamzat Chimaev's abilities at this level, particularly with concerns about his cardio and previous fights that had exposed potential vulnerabilities. He highlighted that Khamzat remained unproven, saying, "There's still a lot of questions, and this is going to answer a lot. Is he the actual boogeyman?" Schaub concluded that while Whittaker had already solidified his standing, Khamzat still needed to fully demonstrate his capabilities at this elite level, making this matchup crucial for both fighters. Chael Sonnen explained that beating Chimaev required stopping his wrestling, not out-wrestling him. He highlighted Robert Whittaker as one of the top 3 counter-wrestlers in MMA history, comparing him to Jose Aldo, who excelled at defending takedowns.
That to beat Chimaev, you got to out-wrestle Chimaev, and that is where all the talk of Bo Nickel comes in. But you don't have that right. To beat Chimaev, you've got to stop him from out-wrestling you. That's not the same thing. Robert Whittaker is a top 3 best counter wrestlers in the history of the sport.
Sonnen discussed Chimaev's size and strength compared to Whittaker. He expressed skepticism about whether Chimaev was truly a large middleweight, 185 pounds, especially when compared to Whittaker, who had previously been considered for a move up to the light heavyweight division, 205 pounds. Sonnen questioned the perception of Chimaev's physical advantage, saying, "I'm not sold on how big he is at 185. I know how big Whittaker is at 185. I supported the concept of Whittaker going up to 205 actually." He emphasized that Whittaker's proven size and strength at middleweight made the fight more difficult for Chimaev than people might have expected. He also noted that while Chimaev had considered a title fight at 170 pounds, travel issues had prevented it, reinforcing his doubts about Chimaev's size at middleweight. Ultimately, he believed that Whittaker's size and power could have been a key factor in the fight. In a recent appearance on the MightyCast podcast, Max Holloway expressed his belief that Robert Whittaker would emerge victorious against Khamzat Chimaev in the co-main event of UFC 308. Holloway praised Whittaker, describing him as a formidable competitor with a high fight IQ and strategic approach. He said, "I think Robert Whittaker is a beast," emphasizing Whittaker's intelligence and well-rounded skill set. Holloway further analyzed Chimaev's recent fight against Kamaru Usman, noting that when Usman wrestled with Chimaev, he struggled. Holloway explained, "When Kamaru decided to avoid wrestling and focus on hand control and positioning, he actually managed to escape several holds." He went on to say that Whittaker, known for his striking and wrestling abilities, could employ similar tactics to outmaneuver Chimaev. Highlighting the importance of endurance, Holloway pointed out that UFC 308 would be a 5-round fight. He mentioned that while Chimaev has previously shown signs of fatigue in 3-round matches, this would be his first 5-round bout, whereas Whittaker has extensive experience in longer fights. Holloway concluded that if Whittaker can maintain an anti-wrestling strategy and avoid being held down, he has a good chance of landing a significant blow and securing victory. Alexander Volkanovski highlighted Whittaker's exceptional takedown defense and physical size as significant advantages. This is particularly relevant against a strong grappler like Khamzat Chimaev. Volkanovski noted that even if Chimaev manages to take Whittaker down, maintaining control and keeping him pinned down would be challenging due to Whittaker's defensive skills and ability to get back. He spoke about Khamzat Chimaev's reputation as a fearsome and dominant opponent, often referred to as the boogeyman of the division, which evokes a sense of intimidation among fighters. Volkanovski specifically highlighted Chimaev's training sessions with an Olympic gold medalist wrestler, pointing out the level of skill and difficulty involved in such grappling exchanges, which emphasizes Chimaev's impressive wrestling credentials. However, Volkanovski also expressed confidence in Robert Whittaker's ability to manage Chimaev's aggression. He underscored Whittaker's advantages, particularly his size and his exceptional takedown defense, which have been key in his previous fights against elite grapplers. Volkanovski believed that while Chimaev might be able to take Whittaker down, holding him down and controlling him would be extremely challenging due to Whittaker's proven ability to get back up and his resilience against strong strong wrestlers in the past. This combination of factors, according to Volkanovski, would make Whittaker a highly formidable opponent capable of neutralizing Chimaev's grappling strengths. Whittaker claimed that he was prepared for Khamzat to be at his best, expecting him to start strong and aggressively. He did not underestimate Khamzat and ensured readiness for a full 5-round challenge, avoiding reliance on Khamzat tiring after the first round.
He's had such success with his really hard starting fighting approach. Okay, regardless whether he gassed or not, he still won those fights pretty handily, and then it was due to the amount of dominance he had in those first rounds. Now, I'm expecting the best version of himself. I'm expecting a guy that comes out hard and a guy that will last. Okay, I've prepared for it. I've trained for it because I'm not going to train thinking that if I get out of the first round, it's game over.
Robert Whittaker explained that he had expected Khamzat Chimaev to come into the fight in peak condition, starting aggressively and maintaining intensity throughout. Whittaker emphasized that he did not underestimate Khamzat's endurance. Instead, he prepared for the possibility that Khamzat would keep up high energy throughout all 5 rounds, rather than assuming he would become fatigued after an initial burst. Whittaker was ready for the toughest version of Khamzat possible, ensuring he had the stamina and strategy to compete for the entire fight. Belal shared his prediction for the intense matchup. Initially doubtful whether the fight would take place, he now believes it's happening since fight week has arrived. Belal stated that he expects Chimaev to dominate Robert in their bout.
Yeah, honestly, I'm just hoping that they make it to fight day, right? That's one of those fights I can't wait for it to come, and to know that it's a week away is it's huge. But for myself, I think I got Khamzat taking him down. I don't know, I have him by submission.
Belal has his hopes up for Chimaev as he is convinced that Khamzat's fighting style will allow him to be victorious. Belal further added on how Khamzat will win. We've seen Whittaker get taken down by Dricus du Plessis with a headlock, and Khamzat's wrestling is so good to see how dominant he has been with wrestling. I think he's going to go in there and do the same exact thing to Whittaker, but Whittaker really hasn't fought somebody that took him down and held him down except for Dricus du Plessis. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown of the epic clash between Khamzat Chimaev and Robert Whittaker, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more MMA content. Let us know in the comments who you think deserves the next middleweight title shot and how you see the future of the division playing out. Stay tuned for more analysis, and we'll see you in the next one.